Well, today's episode just is extremely personal, and it's extremely special to me because today I am going to highlight what is ultimately the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, where armor is forged through mental, spiritual, and physical preparation. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer. I am your host, Carl Wimmer, joining you as I do every single week, and I welcome those of you watching and listening. Today is an extremely special episode for me. It's one of those episodes that on a personal level, if it has 1 million viewers, that's amazing. If it has no viewers, and I am only recording this for my family and my posterity, it is still one of the most special episodes I will ever record. And that is because this episode just so happens to be airing on my 50th birthday. As you know, if you've been a follower of the channel for a while, we post every single Monday. And it just so happens that today is my 50th birthday. And I'm just so grateful and filled with gratitude for the life that I have had so far, the life I live, and the people that I have been able to meet and associate with. I'm just so grateful for you, the viewers and listeners of First Responder Fitness. And I appreciate you joining me today on my birthday. Well, today's episode just is extremely personal, and it's extremely special to me because today I am going to highlight what is ultimately the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. It is the most difficult, the most mentally and physically draining, transformative challenge I have ever undertaken. And it is my body transformation. You know, I have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge when it comes to fitness, health, and nutrition. But the fact is, there was a time in my life where I didn't monitor or closely follow the knowledge that I had, and I let myself go. I'm just being honest. It was by accident, but it was also the result of multiple injuries and a lot of life getting away from me. I've been in good shape before. When I was a young man, I was a boxer. I was into combat sports, and I was in good shape. And then as I transitioned into adulthood, I became a competitive powerlifter and had a tremendous amount of success. And I gained a tremendous amount of weight intentionally so that I could get stronger. And I competed for many years and won 3 world titles in the 275-pound weight division. I did move up to the super heavyweight powerlifting division, and my heaviest was about 305, 306 pounds was the heaviest I ever weighed. This is a photo of me barbecuing out in the backyard during my powerlifting days, and I likely weighed about 300 pounds in this picture. Maybe I'll put a couple other pictures up when I was in the peak of my powerlifting career. And every one of them, I'm usually weighing about 280, 275, 290 pounds. Well, about 2008 or 2009, I had a severe injury due to powerlifting, an injury that fractured my spine, caused a spinal cord injury. And as a result, I have had not one, but 2 neck surgeries. One that was directly related to my spinal cord that ended up resulting in some health issues. To this day, I have a type of palsy that was caused due to damage to my spinal cord. I have some fairly, clear side effects to the spinal cord injury. And I let that issue get the better of me. Here I was, world champion powerlifter. Here I was, almost defined by my strength. People knew who I was because of my strength. I did charity events, doing bench pressing for weight, for money. I would bench press and raise money, and I'd give money away for charity in my community. And I could not lift weights anymore, at least for a while. And I was partially paralyzed in one leg for a while. And I went into a depressive state, to be honest with you. And my body weight stayed the same, but I was no longer lifting the way that I was. And so what was happening with my body? Well, of course, I wasn't keeping the muscle mass that I had when I was a powerlifter, but I was staying the same weight. I was still staying 270 pounds. I was becoming very obese. And over the years, I tried various things to lose weight, and I did. I cut weight down, about 240 pounds, 230 pounds is where I was probably the most comfortable. 230, 240 pounds, probably my most comfortable, and it's where I hung out for a very, very long time. Now, I have a lot of experience in physical fitness, having been a certified personal trainer in multiple certifications, actually, being a coach and being a nutrition coach. I knew all the proper data and I knew all the proper facts, but I had let life get the better of me. And just last week, in celebration of my 50th birthday, my wife and I went to Cancun. And we had a goal. I had a goal to be in the best physical fit shape, the best physical shape that I have ever been in by the time I hit 50 years old. And so last week, just days before my 50th birthday, my wife and I went down on the beach and we took these photos. Here I am, 50 years old, leaner than I have been in decades, if not my entire life. More muscular, more lean than I have ever been. And as I posted these photos to various social media outlets that I have, I had many people ask me, how did I do this? What kind of transition? What took place? What did it take for me to do this? Because most people have never seen me as anything but fat, big, muscular, powerful, and strong, but with a substantial amount of fat. So what happened? What did I do personally? And I've got to caution you before we start. This, as I said, was the hardest thing I have ever done in my entire life. And that is saying a lot, because I have been to various SWAT schools. I have trained my body to where I won 3 world powerlifting championships. I was a boxer and had to train as a fighter, someone who at one point was really quite serious about my boxing career. And I had to train for long periods of time in boxing. But physically speaking, at 50 years old, cutting my body fat down to approximately 10% body fat, as you see in these pictures, from about 27% body fat. is the single hardest thing I have ever done. This is a picture of me. It's a little bit older, but it's one of the more recent pictures that I have of me, soft-bellied and obese, depressed, post-powerlifting career, not knowing what direction to go. And if you compare that person to the person standing on the beach now, you can see a significant difference in not only the body, the physique, and not only do I shave my head now, but there is a difference in my confidence, my self-respect, and my mental attitude. So I do want to walk you through the process of what it took for me to transition from an out-of-shape, obese individual to an conditioned person, lean and muscular at 50 years old. But before I tell you exactly what I did, I want to tell you what it was that motivated me to do this. Yes, of course I wanted to get in shape. Yes, of course I wanted to look better. We all do. But, this is one of those things that took more than just a desire. It took more than a want. This was one of those things that was triggered by a person in my life who I have no ability to disappoint. And that is my daughter. My daughter, who is, I've mentioned on this show before, she is a kinesiologist. She's a personal trainer. She is a nutrition expert. I raised my daughter to be physically fit. I raised her to be in shape. She was a state record holder in sprinting. She broke every sprint record at her high school. She's just an incredibly conditioned person. And whether or not she remembers this conversation or not is up in the air, but I remember it clearly. It was about a year ago. And she said, "Dad, you're starting to get into a little bit better shape than you've been. Why don't you try to have abs by the time you're 50? Try to see if you can see your abs by the time you're 50. And I'm thinking in the back of my head, I've never seen my abs. I've been very transparent on this channel that I am a natural fat kid. I was obese as a child. In fact, if I can find some pictures of me as a child, I will post them. But I was always fat. I was always strong. I was stronger than all of my friends. I could bench press 100 pounds cleanly in 4th grade, but I was always fat. My body likes to hang on to fat. It is more comfortable being fat and obese, and hunger overwhelms me at times. And so the idea of getting down to what I thought it would require was 12% body fat in order to see my abs, I was wrong. It took about 10% to get where I am in these photos, and my six-pack is still not completely in, as you can tell. There is a fair amount of loose skin that you cannot really tell. There's a lot of loose skin there. And there still is a small amount of fat over the abs, especially the lower abs. It would probably require me to get to about 8 or 9% body fat for all 6 abs to show clearly. And I may end up doing that, and I might not. But either way, I assumed I'd get down to about 12% and my abs would pop. But the idea of getting down to 12% body fat from where I was at that particular time, which was 25+%, was frightening. But I have no ability to tell my daughter no or to let her down. I have no ability to let my family down. And so when she issued this challenge, I took it personally, and I was going to do it. I was going to transition, and I was going to do it no matter what it took. No matter what it took, no matter how much I had to drag my body through hell, I was going to do it. I was committed this time at a deeper level. And that is the first point I want to make to you today before I lay out my strategy. You can't just want to get into condition. You can't just want superficially to, oh yeah, I'd like to have abs. Oh yeah, I'd like to lose 40 pounds. Oh yeah, I would like this, like that. No, you can't. Your why needs to be so deep, so ingrained, so intense, so big that you would nearly be willing to die to accomplish it. Now, I know that sounds like hyperbole, but this was the hardest thing I've ever done. And for many of you, it would be the hardest thing you will ever do in your life. And you cannot accomplish something like this if you are not insanely and intensely focused on getting it done. And that's the warning I want to issue you, that you will have to go through hell for a long time. If you are obese, let's just say you are 25% body fat or more for men, or 30% body fat or more for women, and you want to get into condition that looks like, fitness. You can see your abs. You can see your chest ripple. You can see your shoulders ripple. You can do it. But you are literally going to have to walk through the hardest thing you've ever done before. So with that introduction, let's start with what I did, because this transition took me a year or longer. I took her words and I started, and I became very, very serious about my fitness, my diet, every single thing. Many of the things I did, I have outlined in the Habits to Healthy in 1 Year program, which you could follow along with. There were things that I did that are in there that I've been doing ever since. But I want to make sure that this is very clear. So let's first of all start where it all matters. This is where it matters most. And that is nutrition. Nutrition. There is nothing more important than nutrition. You've heard it said before that you cannot outwork a bad diet, and that is absolutely the case. You cannot go for a 1-hour jog and then think, gee, I must have burned 1,000 calories so I can go eat at the buffet, or I can eat like garbage. No, this type of transition requires not only burning those 1,000 calories from exercise, but it requires that you monitor every calorie you put in your mouth. I encourage you to download the Chronometer calorie monitoring nutrition app. Chronometer is the one I used. You can use MyFitnessPal. I prefer Chronometer because it still allows you to scan foods for free without having to upgrade to their special subscriber program. I monitored for over a year. It's now been about 15 months. I monitor everything I put in my mouth. I do not lick a spoon. I do not lick a fork. I do not lick a beater. Nothing unless it goes into the Chronometer app. Every calorie, even the hidden calories. If I spray a pan with olive oil, even though it says 0 calories on the spray, logically, you know that's not true. It's olive oil. There are calories in it, but they say a serving is a full second spray, something like that. No, they say a serving is a 4 second. So a 1/4 second spray has 0 calories. Who sprays their pan for a quarter second? No, you're spraying it for a full second or even 2. There are probably 10 calories added to that pan. Every hidden calorie I tried to monitor and I put into the app. Now, some of you are already throwing your hands up and saying, I'm out. I'm not going to do that. That's fine. I'm okay with you throwing your hands up and saying, I'm not going to do it. I am just laying out what it took to do what I did. Okay, so that was number 1. I was going to be in a calorie deficit, and I was going to be in a calorie deficit for a very, 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 very long time. Now, I'll say this. I did about a 6-month I'd say maybe 4 months of severe calorie deficit, and I couldn't take any more. And that led me up to about Thanksgiving of 2024. Okay, prior to Thanksgiving 2024. During the holidays of 2024, I laid off. I intentionally laid off. I knew I was laying off, and I was monitoring, and I was convicted and convinced and absolutely certain I was not going to gain more than 10 pounds between Thanksgiving of 2024 and Valentine's Day of 2025. And I stuck to that. I gained about 10, 12 pounds between Thanksgiving of 2024 and Valentine's Day of 2025, which was the day that I was getting back into my severe calorie deficit. So between Thanksgiving and Valentine's Day, I let off the gas a little bit with the nutrition, but not with my exercise, not with my fitness. I was still walking, doing my fasted walk every morning, which we'll get into. And I was still doing my exercise. I was doing everything, but I laid off the calorie deficit, 1, because I was burned out, and 2, because it's the holidays and I knew that I would probably fail. So I gave myself a little bit of break during the holidays, but not a huge break. I wasn't eating like an idiot. Okay, let's just put it that way. I wasn't eating the pie every single day. This is just the timeline. So about 4 months before Thanksgiving of 2024 is when I started this. Took a little bit of a break from Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day. The day after Valentine's Day this year, 2025, I went into a 1,000 calorie deficit every single day, and I held a 1,000 calorie deficit from Valentine's Day until last week. Every single day. Every day. Now, you might be asking, how did I not lose muscle? Because that's a steep, steep deficit. That's a deficit that should equate to about 2 pounds of body fat every single week. And I would say that's accurate. That's probably fairly accurate. How did I not lose muscle? That brings me to the second part of of nutrition. So we're still under nutrition. The first thing is the calorie deficit. I was in a calorie deficit. I tracked everything. The second thing was my protein. Regardless of what little I could eat in a given day, depending on how much I exercised. And I exercised so much because I wanted to eat more. I exercised, and we'll get into that in just a bit. But I kept my protein above 200 to 250 grams every single day. Now, think about that for a second. This is for a man. This is for a large man. That still means the majority of my food was lean protein. I would get 40 to 60 grams of protein in every single meal, 4 times a day, plus any snacks I would eat were always protein-centric. So that was a non-negotiable. I had to make sure that my body was in a muscle-saving, protein-sparing stage. So even in a steep calorie deficit, I kept my protein very high, 200, 250 grams of protein every single day. What foods did I rely on? Chicken. And I used to hate chicken. I told you the story about the time I was in SWAT, and we were doing a trash cover on a meth lab, and I opened up a bag full of rotted chicken and maggots, and it was horrendous, and it was awful. I didn't eat chicken for years after that. I've gotten over that, and chicken is the staple in our home. We buy 40-pound boxes of flash frozen chicken, and we cook it each week, and we put chicken in everything. We put chicken in our breakfast. We have chicken for lunch. We have chicken for dinner. We have chicken for our dessert, okay? Chicken is a huge, huge chicken breast. Skinless, boneless chicken breast was the number one food that I eat. And it will continue to be the number one food I eat. Greek yogurt, non-fat, oikos, phage, whatever. Non-fat, zero fat, low-calorie Greek yogurt. I like the vanilla. Chobani makes another one. There's 3 different ones that I would eat, but the majority of it was the vanilla, zero, complete 000 oikos. I'm giving you everything here. So Greek yogurt was every single day. It found its way into my diet with berries. I like it with berries. I'd put it with different berries because I love raspberries, one of my favorite foods. Sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on it. Sugar substitutes were a huge help. I like monk fruit. I like stevia. I like the blue one. Yeah, no, the yellow one, whatever the yellow one is, Splenda. So I use a lot of sugar substitutes. There's people out there who say, oh, that'll give you cancer, this and that. No, it won't. Okay. Do your research. Do actual research instead of superficial research. There's nothing wrong with sugar substitutes. In fact, if you're not using sugar substitutes, you're just torturing yourself for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Protein shakes, a lot of whey protein isolate. We would mix protein isolate in our Greek yogurt. We would make protein pancakes, which half was the whey isolate, half was Kodiak cakes. We always monitored the calories of every single food, everything that we had put in it, everything. But whey protein isolate, massive amounts of whey protein isolate. And isolate is better than concentrate, but it's more expensive, so concentrate is just fine. A lot of lean meats, turkey breast, ham, so lower fat hams, 97% lean ground beef, steak, has a lot of calories, so you got to be careful what steaks you're eating. You need to really look at the calorie count of the steak you want to eat if you want to eat steak. It got to the point where I started eating less and less red meat towards the end just because the calorie count's higher in red meat. I would drain and wash my ground beef, recook it, just to get as much fat and calories out of it as I could. There were times that I would do minimal strategic refeeds, but those were extremely rare and extremely moderate. Never did I have a cheat meal. Never did I have a cheat day. Can you imagine having a cheat day where you're trying to get 1,000 calorie deficit every single day in a 7-day period? And Saturday you do a cheat day and you eat 5,000 calories that day? You just blew your calorie allotment for the entire week. Cheat days are dumb. They're dumb. They don't reset you. They just make you miss what you don't get the rest of the week. Trust me on this one thing. As you start to eat the way I describe, the Greek yogurts, the chicken breasts, the protein, the egg whites, so many egg whites. I would buy egg whites. We'd buy egg whites in cartons and egg whites. A rare occasion we had let a yolk slip in on purpose just to get the extra nutrients. But egg whites, tons of egg whites, liquid egg whites, all the time, every day, every day, egg whites. Either way, I would do small strategic refeeds. But what I say is you will start to love your food. You will start to love your food. You will love chicken breast. You will love egg whites. You will love Greek yogurt as you cut out the crap. And you've got to get rid of the crap. Empty out your fridge, empty out your pantry, get rid of the temptation foods. And if offered a temptation food, get mad dog angry inside. Don't be mean to people. And refuse to eat it. Don't start. Because I know if I ate one French fry, I would want 500 French fries. If I ate one chip, I would want the whole bag. So I don't even touch it because I know my weaknesses. We also ate a lot of protein bars. We like the Bearbell protein bars, the David protein bars, have great macros. Our favorite flavor, the Bearbells are delicious, absolutely delicious. Built bars are absolutely delicious. We like Built bars as well. I would eat a lot of protein bars as snacks. And that's what I did for not days, not weeks, but months. Number one, that's the number one priority, nutrition. If your nutrition's not on point, if your calories are not on point, nothing else matters. Let's get into training. What kind of training did I do to accomplish and get the body that I have now at 50 years old? There are many different methods of training, and I'm not saying that you need to train exactly like me, but I'm going to just lay out what I did for months on end. Okay. And again, this is not something that you can just dip your toe in and say, oh, I'm going to do this for a few weeks and I expect a transition. I am not V-Shred. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm going to give you the absolute truth. This is hard, but you can do it. You can absolutely do it if you want it bad enough. Your why just has to be big enough. So what did my training look like? It changed a little bit. What I mean by that is the cardio changed. It ramped up. My cardio it ramped up at the end because I needed to burn even more calories, because the more calories I burned, the more food I could eat and still maintain 1,000-calorie deficit every day. That was important to me because I love to eat and I wanted to eat, and I wanted to eat a snack in the evening. I wanted my yogurt and berries so bad. I just wanted the yogurts and berries. I'd crave it in the evening, and if I didn't have enough calories to eat it, it was depressing. And so I ramped my cardio up to where I knew I'd always be able to eat in the, my dinner, and then an hour or so later have my snack. That was important to me. And you'll personalize this yourself, but let me give you the overall training routine. I'd wake up, and before eating anything, I would take my dog for a walk. My wife and I will go for a walk. And when I say we go for a walk, yes, I walked in December with 2 feet of snow on the ground. I walk when it's 100 degrees outside. I walk when it's raining. I walk when it's snowing. I do not miss my fasted walk. That's it. I wake up and I go for about 45 minutes at the light end, 35 minutes at the light end, and to an hour. Most times it's closer to an hour, and it's not that difficult. I have a pathway that's mapped out that is 58, 59 minutes, and that's what I walk. By the time I get home, I'm hungry and I'm ready for my first meal. But I always did a fasted, low intensity, steady state walk first thing in the morning. I'm retired, so I am able to exercise and do things that you may not be able to do. You're going to have to tailor this to your own abilities, but I'll tell you how you can do that in just a minute. My wife would then go to the gym, and I would stay at home. And when she would get home from the gym, we would have lunch, and then I would go to the gym. We would not go together usually because we do have a child who has special needs and needs to be monitored constantly. And so one of us always has to be with him. After lunch, I would walk to the gym. And then I would do my workout and I would walk home. I would begin my workout session at the gym with usually 35 minutes on the elliptical machine. Okay. Sometimes a little less. If it was a leg day, it was always less. And I would save more of the cardio, more of the elliptical toward the end. Then I would do my weight training. I weight train 6 days a week usually. I am on a push-pull leg split. I explain exactly what that is in several other videos. So go back, look at my weightlifting videos, light weights, heavy weights, how to build muscle. Look at all those videos. But I'm on a push-pull leg split. I work my pushing muscles twice a week, my pulling muscles twice a week, and I work my legs twice a week. Usually, but since I'm only working out 6 days a week, sometimes it carries over to where one of them moves into an 8-day period of time. Fine. I always tried to take a day of rest from weightlifting, oftentimes, but I would never take a rest completely from cardio. I would never take a rest from the walk, but I would take a rest from weightlifting. Your joints get tired at 50 years old. You start to get aches and pains from overuse. So you've got to monitor that. Now is not the time for me to lay out my exact workout protocol because this video is already going to be quite a bit longer than some of the others. But just suffice it to say, I would do a push-pull leg split. And then after my weightlifting, I would do another 20, depending on how much elliptical I did at the beginning, I would do elliptical at the end. And I would usually do a minimum of 45 to 75 minutes on the elliptical total. I, on occasion, did up to 80 minutes total on the elliptical, but that was rare, very, very rare. Let's just say I generally did about 45 minutes to an hour on the elliptical, split up a little bit before my weight training, a majority after my weight training, so I had energy to weight train. Then I would walk home. All told, I was doing roughly 3 hours of exercise every day, except for the day I rested. I did my hour walk in the morning. I did an hour of cardio, and then an hour to an hour and 25 minutes, hour and a half of weight training. Every single day, 3 hours of training. It did get to the point at the end where I was doing 3 hours of cardio, where the elliptical was taking up 70 minutes, where my walks were taking longer. To walk to the gym, usually it's a 20-minute walk there, 20-minute back. I would take a little longer. I would make sure that that was an hour. And so that's a lot. And I know the rest of you who didn't cash out during the nutrition part are probably throwing your hands up and saying, what? I'm out. Okay. I get it. This is not a 8-week transition with a 20-minute workout 3 times a week and you're going to look beautiful. This is just the raw truth of what it takes when you're 50 years old to look decent. It's just what it is. And I'm just being honest with you. My step count each day, I used to monitor it very closely, but I stopped monitoring it towards the end because it didn't really matter to me. I just knew what I was doing. My step count was never under 10,000. It was always above 10,000, and it was usually about 12,000. But I was more interested in the total time of exercise. And of course, you plug that into the Chronometer app, and it gives you more calories you can eat, which is absolutely wonderful, because with 1,000-calorie deficit, you're eating like a mouse, and doing more cardio allows you to actually eat some food. So it was absolutely wonderful. As far as supplements go, I take a lot. Okay, I take a lot of supplements, but I prioritize the whey protein isolate, which I already talked about. I prioritize creatine monohydrate every single day, usually 10 grams of creatine monohydrate every single day. I'd mix it in my yogurt. I'd mix it in my coffee. Every single day, I would take creatine. I would prioritize the omegas, so krill oil and fish oils, things like that, which would help, just help your overall body, your health. Toward the end, I did start taking yohimbine, which is, I would take that before I would do my fasted walk in the morning. That's supposed to help metabolize fat. I don't know if I saw a difference using yohimbine at all. I was taking quite a bit. I was taking, for my weight, I was taking 20 grams, I think, 20 grams before I'd go walk, half hour before I go walk. I didn't really feel anything, and I'm not sure that it did anything, but I did take it. I would take Element drinks. In fact, it was so important to start taking Element drinks because I was sweating so much every single day. The Element was a refreshing, wonderful energy boost, and it helped. So those were some of the things that I did. So by now, if you've followed along and if you've taken notes, you've probably decided that it's not something you want to do. And when I posted this on Facebook, I said, you're not going to want to do what I did. And you may actually not have time to do what I did because, like I said, I'm retired, so I can work out 3 hours a day. Maybe you can't, which means that your workouts need to be a little bit more intense, or your nutrition needs to be a little bit more on point than mine was, and your calories need to be lower than mine are, or you need more time than I had. Ultimately, time over months. You need more months than I have because I had a deadline, my 50th birthday. So there are things that you can do. You can go slower, but going slower means it's going to take more overall length of time for you to accomplish your goals. I do want to say that 1,000-calorie deficit every single day is not sustainable in the long term. And it's always better to lose slower. It's always better to lose slower. So if I were to give you advice, I would say do a 500 to 700 calorie deficit every single day instead of 1,000. And just do it for the rest of your life. Okay. Not the rest of your life, but do it for 2 years. If you were to do a 500 calorie deficit for 2 years, you would look amazing at the end of those 2 years. But are you willing to do that? That's the question. Do you have the fortitude to do something for that long? And that brings me to the most important aspect of this. I know I said nutrition was the most important, and it was. But this is right there with it. And that's the mental side. This was harder than I expected. This was so hard that there were days where I thought I was dying. I very clearly remember at the end of one day, my wife and I would usually sauna. We like to use the sauna for the health benefits in the evening. And I'll never forget, after one time we got out of the sauna and I went and I laid on the bathroom floor and I couldn't move. And I couldn't move my fingers. I couldn't move my hands. I just sunk into the floor and thought I was going to die. I had no energy. I was done. I was so zapped. I was done physically. I was drained. I was deflated. I couldn't move. And I laid there for 15 minutes as the shower water was running and warming up. And I just said to myself, you've got to get up. You've got to get up. You got to get in the shower. And I knew the longer I laid there, the less likely it was that I'd get up that night. So I got up and I showered and I went to bed. Next morning, I felt better. You know, I drank an element, and after I drank an element before I went to bed, and I felt better. But you're going to learn very quickly that it is the hardest thing that you will ever do. How do you stay motivated during that fatigue, insane fatigue, and hunger, and emotional lows? Because you can't be a jerk around your family. You can't take this out on your family. The one thing I wanted to guarantee was that I sheltered my family, my wife, and my kids from how I felt, because I didn't want my misery to spill out on them. And I'm telling you, there was a lot of misery and torture and harsh, just deflated feelings. The other thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to affect what I did around the house. I am the dish doer in the home. I mow the grass. I had to push myself through that with zero energy. I'd put the earbuds in. I'd crank up some Rob Bailey and the Hustle Standard or something else that could get me going, and I would just go do it. You cannot let it affect your home life. You have to continue to be able to pour into your family. I will warn you, men, that an extended, long, lengthy calorie deficit like I was in, that zaps your energy, and you're in this for months on end, lowers your libido. It lowers everything. It makes you drained. And that's how I felt. The mental side was absolutely brutal. How did I stay motivated? The tools I used was, ultimately, I had told myself that I was willing to go through hell, and it didn't matter what I had to go through. I was going to accomplish this. For me, there was nothing outside of my relationships with God and my family that was more important than this. It was one of those things that I become obsessed with, that ultimately I was willing to, really felt in my own mind and in my heart, willing to die to do. So quitting was not an option. I could not and would not quit. I couldn't quit. I use a lot of self-talk. I would talk to myself. I would encourage myself. I, for the first time in my entire life, made use of AI, the chat PT, and I would type in how I felt, and I know it was just a stupid AI, but it would respond and give me tips, advice, and even give you encouragement. And I found some encouragement in that. Dealing with the self-doubt and comparison was real towards the end. And I'd look in the mirror and I wouldn't see change. And I'd be like, is this even worth it? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. But it's hard. So what are some of the lessons learned, the lessons I learned? First of all, the lesson that I knew already, and the lesson that I learned, the lesson I want to pass on to you, is that discipline is far greater than motivation. Motivation will only get you so far. Motivation barely gets you out the door. Discipline is much greater than motivation. The second thing I learned is sleep and rest matter a whole lot more than you think. I was precise in my sleep. Lights out at 11. Alarm goes off at 8. Every single day for me. That may be different for you. Maybe it needs to be earlier in the evening and earlier in the morning. You're also going to learn that a steep calorie deficit for months on end interrupts your sleep. So I made use of melatonin. That's something I didn't mention in the supplements. I made use of melatonin in the evenings for my sleep. It matters. Ultimately, I learned that fat loss is a simple thing, but it's not easy. And I also learned that nobody's going to do it for me. Nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody really cares. my wife loved me when I was fat. She loves me no different now. I mean, I was really kind of hoping she'd be like, wow, babe, you're hot. No, not really. You got to do it for yourself. You got to do this for yourself. If you don't do it for yourself, and if your why is not huge and big enough, then you'll quit. And you don't want to quit. You want to be successful. Is there anything I would have done differently? The only thing I can think of that I would have done differently is I would have never allowed myself to get out of shape. I would have never gained all that fat over the years because it was too hard to lose. And now that I'm down to 10% body fat, I will never allow myself to go above 15% ever again. I am going to now transition into a lean bulk. I want to put on more muscle mass. I want to put on 5 to 8 pounds in the next year, if possible. And you say 5 to 8 pounds in a year. Yeah. Gaining muscle is a lot harder than losing fat. That's why if you want to change the way your body looks, losing fat is the number one key. It's the best way to do it. But yeah, I want to put on, if I can put on anywhere near 10 pounds in the next year, I'll be happy. But I'm going to transition into a lean bulk, but I will not allow myself to go above 15% body fat ever again. As long as I have the authority and the power over my body, because this was too hard. And I will never do this again. I'll do cuts again. Yeah, I'll do cuts. Matter of fact, the next cut I do, I'm going to try to get down to maybe 9% body fat and see if I can't get a 6-pack. But what would I change the most? I would never get as big as I did. I'd never get as fat as I had gotten. That's one thing. What would I do differently? Nothing, because I had put a time limit. I had to do it by the time I was 50. But if that wasn't a restraint, I would have taken longer, and I would have not had 1,000 calorie deficit every single day. I would have been lighter on that. I would have been 500, 700, anything but 1,000, because that's insane to carry for a very, very long time. Ultimately, my final thoughts on this are, it changed my view of aging. It changed my view on masculinity. It changed my view of fatherhood, and it changed some of my views on faith. Faith helped carry me through this. Being a father who didn't want to let his daughter down, who didn't want to let his kids down, who wanted to leave a legacy for his kids. I wanted my boys to see me suffer. I wanted my family to see me suffer, to know that I could suffer, to know that I could do hard freaking things, and that I could succeed. Do you understand that? How many times do we fail in life? And how many times does our family see us fail in life? How many times do we seek out to do something and we fail at it? And we're teaching our kids that we fail. I wanted my kids to see that I could suffer badly, but be the conqueror, to be victorious, to be someone that they could be proud of, to say someone, to look and say, you know what? Dad's a badass. Because my kids don't remember my boxing days. My daughter remembers my powerlifting days as a world champion somewhat, but I don't think my boys really remember their dad being able to bench press 600 pounds and being the strongest guy they know. So this is what I wanted to leave them. A legacy of dad being a badass. That was important to me. Saying this guy is someone who has grit and can do it and get it done. That was important to me. Not because of vanity. This was not about vanity. This was about legacy. Leaving a legacy for my kids to know that they can do hard freaking things in their life. And so can you. Viewer, listen to me. So can you. You can do hard things. You can do even better than I did. But you've got to do it for powerfully large reasons. I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to go beyond what you think you can do. I want you to dream big. I want you to catch a vision. I want you to grasp onto that vision, and then I want you to never let go and hang on until it is accomplished. Accomplish something hard in your life. I dare say there's some viewers who have never really accomplished anything super hard in their life, that they've allowed the softness of life to get the better of them. Don't be that person. Dedicate yourself to one thing: getting in shape, improving your health. Get a vision of what you want, get laser focused, and go do it. You can. You can. And we at First Responder Fitness are here to encourage you, to help you, and to understand the suffering along with you. You can do this. Again, this wasn't about abs. This wasn't about proving anything. It was about showing myself that I could do it. That at 50 years old, I still had what it takes. I do have what it takes at 50 years old. And so do you. No matter how old you are, you can do it. So I'll leave you with that. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. I may do another follow-up to this, outline my weight training routine. But this video's been long enough. This episode's long enough. Love you guys. I encourage you to go out there and just conquer the world. I also, as I do every week, I just want to remind you, from all of us at First Responder Fitness, to be good to yourself, be good to others, and as always, stay safe.